Hello, good evening. My name is Martin Adlayan together with my group mates Alonzo Ashley Joy, Bernarte Kate Monica, Feliciano Carly, Rebanio Liberty, Reyes Keahnna, Ruedas Phoebe Hart, and Sitchon Ainah. Today I will be presenting to you our live case entitled Gender Representation Among Male and Female Overseas Filipino Workers, Stereotype Gender Roles Assigned to Women and Men. Now let us proceed to our problem statement. Number 1. The term Bagong Bayani, or in English, New Heroes, has come to be used to both describe Filipino laborers both in land and at sea. However, despite the fact that the term was originally reserved for women, heroes of our country's economy were the words of our former President Corazon Aquino when she met with Filipino domestic workers in Hong Kong in April of 1988. Therefore, the percentage of newly employed female overseas Filipino workers grew significantly to their male counterparts beginning in the 1990s rather, and reached as high as 74% in 2004. This growth began in comparison to the proportion of newly hired male OFWs, which shows that it is important to note that the majority of female migrant workers in lower paying sectors of the labor market, such as in the entertainment and domestic sector. This, what you are hearing right now, aims to focus on the discursive images of male and Filipino workers working abroad and how these representations vary, wherein men are characterized as responsible breadwinners who are virulent and or pose a danger to a socio-economic and international hierarchies, whereas women are seen or viewed as doing domestic and reproductive roles. Now, what is our rationale? Number 1, we have our stakeholders or communities. Our stakeholders are the overseas Filipino workers, both women and men, which refer to Filipino migrant worker residing in foreign countries within a limited time frame. The Philippines is one of the Asian countries that have a vast number of global migrants, as stated by Kang and Latoha in 2020, as cited by the Center for Migrant Advocacy 2021. The first peak of migrant workers happened between 1906 and 1934. When 100,000 Filipinos deployed to work in Hawaii pineapple plantation and Alaska's canning factory. And this is where the large scale of many Filipino workers continue to increase. At the current time, there are approximately 1.77 million overseas Filipino workers who are currently working in 2020. The data reported that 96.4% of Filipino migrants have working settlements, while 3.63% are later employed without working visas or permits, according to the Philippine Statistics Authority. Moreover, most Filipino migrants are domestic workers who provide care services inside the household. Mohayedin posits that women in the Philippines choose to do domestic labor globally because of the strong influence of their femininity ideology from the experiences inside the household. And this is something to do with the embedded gender stereotyping in our culture, where women are expected to play their roles according to the community standards, and they were not given any opportunities to discover their capabilities. So almost all job opportunities for women are more on domestic care because of the impact of gender stereotyping. Second is the platform. The group would want to utilize different social media platforms in order to offer to broaden the Filipinos' understanding and awareness concerning the gender representation among male and female representation among male and female overseas Filipino workers. In addition, social media platforms will be used to grab people's attention. to engage as well as to slowly develop an action plan to lessen, if not eradicate, the problem. According to an article published by um, by the statistical research data of Facebook, Facebook is one of the most used social media platforms in the Philippines as of 2021's third quarter. 96.2% of the social media users are accessing the said platform. The social media platform should be used by the group in order to spread awareness to the people that such issues occur. Facebook, since this is the most used platform by Filipinos, the group decided to utilize this platform to reach more audiences for them to be aware that gender stereotyping is pervasive in the work field as an OFW. In this way, the group believes that Facebook is one of the ideal platforms in sharing information and advocacy. Contents that are posted on Facebook could be shared easily, which makes it accessible for social media users, particularly the women who are in the work field as an OFW. And of course, a third is the interaction or the relevance to media. Throughout the years, in all aspects, the media has played significant roles in amplifying and strengthening awareness in various social political issues, may it be and the issue of oil prices, gender, politics, and anything under the sun. Particularly in Wenderama's Apat Dapat, Dapat Apat that features Pokwang, Candy Pangilinan, Rufa May Quinto, and Eugene Domingo as overseas Filipino workers based in Hong Kong. Pangilinan's role is an abused and abducted domestic helper. Seeking into the nitty-gritty aspects of the film, Pangilinan was deprived of stills to showcase her strength to resist an oppressive system. Instead, the film resorted to empowering the standpoint of the perpetrators. With the high number of women entering the battlefield abroad, these have been references for various media instruments to further stereotype OFW women as battered domestic helpers. An example, Floor Contemplation Story, MMK Passport, and Apat Dapat, Dapat Apat. And we proceed to impact. Considering the dilemmas of gender stereotyping and in labor among OFWs, which often result in labor participation in our country, we are still at the level of gender awareness, wherein we are only informed that men and women have different roles, responsibilities, and needs. However, we still fail to attain the level of being gender sensitive, despite the fact that our country remains on the top among Asian countries for closing the gender gap. The Philippines is not yet gender responsive because we still lack in having efforts for promoting gender equality in our society. Therefore, data from the survey on overseas Filipino workers for 2020 of the Philippine Statistics Authority showed that 59.6% of OFWs in 2020 were women. However, they only accounted 44.47% of total remittances. Women's role as workers outside our country were more likely to be domestic helpers, yet men are always on the productive works, and it is that kind of expectation for all that it isn't gender sensitive that has an effect that leads to a gender gap in the labor force. Participation, including labor market and domestic work, and care burdens, and women's more limited access to resources, including education, training, government services, credit, and financial service. Now, next, we must look into the value of co-creation and cultural innovation. Constant disparities between men and women reflect that women have more lack of growth, for there is a persistent norm that they must act in the society only for domestic work. The global migrants' current situation in the workplace communicates how the society must acknowledge gender sensitivity on gender roles. The account of how they perceive gender roles and stereotypes, most especially women, not just in the community of OFWs, but in the society as a whole. This study aims to cultivate and enlighten regarding the ramifications of gender stereotyping and its benefit to the stakeholders if the gender issues commence to be reduced. To shed the light on the proper representation and image of men and women regarding the misconceptions of their roles as OFWs, this project is beneficial, number one, to their community, in a way that gender will be given more opportunities to embrace other jobs without having to be questioned by other people with what they do for a living. You know what? According to the Statistica Research Department in 2020, maltreatment of OFWs, which are most designated in the Middle East, reached nearly 5,000 reported cases, thus instilling in their minds that the ideology that there is no specific gender for a specific job, discrimination and abuse in the workplace may lessen, if not completely eradicated. Furthermore, the achievement of the goal number 5 of the Sustainable Development Goals would be obtained if the gender stereotyping on our country would be lessened. Now let's proceed to our proposed interventions and conclusions. Now, given the numerous reasons, it is evident that only by becoming an OFW is one of the ways of Filipino workers to find employment yet still experience gender stereotyping. Provided all the sources of quantitative and qualitative data, we have concluded that gender stereotypes in labor among OFWs still exist, which results to other issues including gender inequity, erroneous perspectives, discrimination, and uneven or unequal treatment. When it comes to male OFWs, dominant ideas that being a man or a father and doing productive work go together. These ideas give labor migration legitimacy, and male OFWs become subject of state intervention, and the state regains its power. With that being said, the importance of transnational labor migration to the current experiences of social transformation is brought to light through an investigation of gender's representations of overseas Filipino workers. Representations of overseas Filipino workers follow the unsettled state of the established social order as well as measures to suppress change. Now that we've heard all of this, we do hope that you learned something. With that being said, thank you so much.